to Learn Free Music Theory, lesson number 41. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about imperfect cadences. So, if you remember back in video number 26, I think it was, I'm not totally sure now, but pretty sure it's 26, I was talking about cadences. Now, in this video, I'm going to expand a little bit more on another cadence, the imperfect cadence that I just said. And it is basically a cadence that instead of ending on 1, it's actually going to be ending on 5. So basically, when you're going to see this cadence is generally in the middle of a piece, and it's going to be pushing you forward. Now, the next video after this is actually going to pick up on those cadences that I have shown you, this one now and the one that I showed you before, the perfect cadence. And so I'm going to show you how to do incorporate an imperfect and a perfect cadence into like 2 4-bar question and answer melody writing phrases. So pay attention to this one for sure, because it's going to be useful. I wouldn't try to make a video if I didn't think at least the topic I'm covering is useful in some way. But anyway, so let's just get right to it, guys. So the first thing I've drawn out here is an overview chart. I want you guys to see sort of an overview of what we're trying to do before we actually jump into each example here. Okay, so there's 2 sides. We can have major cadences and minor cadences. So they're different in the major and minor examples, so I just wanted to first show you which ones you're going to use. So now just remember, these are the Roman numerals for the chords, right? So the I, the big capital I, represents the Roman numeral 1, and that's the 1 chord of whatever key you're in, okay? So that could be the chord of A flat major in the key of A flat major. For the V, that's a 5. So it's all based off Roman numerals. So 5 in A flat major would be E flat major, or an E flat major chord. Okay? So that would be what you're going to be doing, is you're going to be using A flat. So you'd use A flat, C, and then E flat. And there you'd use E flat, G, E flat, G, B flat for your chord tones, and that's how you'd basically make it. But just don't get too scared or anything. I'm not going to just throw it all at you like that and expect you to do it. I'm going to actually show examples of how you do the voice leading. Okay, so, and also we did keyboard style in the last cadence one, but now you got the cadence video. But now you guys know about chorale style, so we're going to do the examples in chorale style. So now it gives you kind of a mix of showing you can actually do cadences in both styles. So with what you know about keyboard style, you should be able to kind of figure out what you're going to do with these cadences. So I'm going to show you how to do it in chorale style now. Okay? So now, moving over along, so if we're trying to do these are all imperfect cadences, okay? So these are the most common type of imperfect cadence you're going to use. So you're either going to use a 1 to 5, and these are in the 5/3 inversion, so it's just in the regular, with the root of the, basically if you were using A flat major, you're going to have A flat on the bass, because it's, when you just see 1, it's kind of like defaultly going to be the 5/3 position. So just straight up normal. So it's going to be 1, 5, and notice there's no 7 there. Generally, you don't go to a 5/7 chord when you are just trying to do an imperfect cadence. The 5/7 is usually used more when you're trying to go back to the tonic. So you're going to see it more in perfect cadences than you will in imperfect. So next up, down here, we've got the 2 to the 5. So it's a 2 chord to a 5 chord. If we're in C major, for example, just to keep it easy, C is the first note of the scale, obviously. Second note is D, so we're going to have a D minor triad going to a G major triad. So that would be an imperfect cadence in C major there. Next, we have 4 to 5. Now I want you to notice here, 5, 5, 5. It's always ending on 5. Over here, 5, 5, 5. It's always ending on 5, okay? Whenever you do an imperfect cadence, it's going to end on 5. So the only numbers that go with that, that I'm showing in this example here, is 1, 2, and 4. So it's 1, 5, 2, 4, or 4, wait a minute, 1, 5, 2/5, or 4/5. So yeah, that's the major. So notice this, how there's little dots there? That means that it's actually going to be the minor triad. This is major, 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 that's major, that's major. So it's telling you that it's a major triad that you're going to be using. So that's 1, so it'll be, you know, C major to G major. This would be D minor to G major. Okay? Now, it doesn't actually mean that you're not still in the key of C major, even though you're saying D minor. It's just that if you take all the notes in a scale of C major and you go, okay, I'm going to take the second note of D major, I'm going to the second note of C major, that's D. I'm going to take the fourth note of C major, that's F. And I'm going to take the sixth note of C major, that's A. And if you look at that chord, it's D, F, A. Well, that makes a D minor triad right there. So it's part of the C major scale itself, okay? That's basically how it's working. Okay, so major, that's how that one's going to go. Now, I want you to look over here. In the minor, it's different now. So if you're doing, you're doing a piece in a minor key, like we talked about with minor to minor transposition, you're going to have a minor triad going to, I think this one's major. Yeah, pretty sure it's major. So, yeah, it's major for sure. Because I'm just thinking, yeah, that would be, yeah, it'd be G major. Okay, for example, if this was C minor here, right here, we're going to have a C minor as our first chord. So instead of using C major, we'll just use C minor. So it's going to be C, E flat, G for the one chord, okay? Now, the fifth would be G. Now, B flat is in the key of C, is in the key signature of C minor, but it's going to be raised up because it's the seventh note. So that's one thing you always have to worry about when you're doing minor dominant chords, okay? Dominant being the fifth chord. The middle note is, because 5 is your root, your third note or your second note, it's called the third of the chord, or the middle note. That one is going to be, I'm doing this because I'm a piano player, but other people would be thinking something else, I imagine. But anyway, the second note up, which is called the third, is actually going to be raised because it's the seventh note in that scale. If it's in a minor key, right? Just remember, it's minor. We always raise the seventh note in the harmonic minor, right? That's where it comes from, is it's basically to make the harmony sound better. It changes what was called the subtonic to the leading tone. And all that means is that the subtonic means it's a whole tone difference from the seventh note to the tonic again. And this leading tone is a semitone difference. Just like, for example, B to C is a semitone. So if you're going up the scale, it's like tonic, supertonic, median, all that stuff. That's a semitone. So that's going to be, oh, there's sirens. That's going to be basically the leading tone. But if you have a whole tone, say from the B flat to the C, that's a whole tone, okay? Not a semitone anymore. So the whole tone is actually going to be your, it has another name, it's called the subtonic, okay? So you might want to remember that if you can. And so, I mean, it's kind of extra information, it doesn't really matter too much, but the third or the middle note of the chord is going to always be raised up. So there's usually going to be some sort of accidental there generally. Okay? And so it actually turns it major because if we're at B flat, now you're at B, so it's G, B, D, which is G major. So you're going C minor to G major. Okay? That's a lot of information for just that one little thing. Okay, now moving along here, we have 2 diminished 6. So it's a diminished triad, and the 6 tells you that it's in what? The first inversion. So we're not going to have, if this is in C minor, we're not going to have D on the bottom, we're going to have the next one over. Okay? Which is F. Okay. So why it's a diminished chord, by the way, is because it's D, F, A flat. So from D to F is a minor third, and from F to A flat is a minor third. So when you have 2 minor thirds in a triad, that's a diminished triad. Okay? So that's why it's diminished 6. So it's 2, so it's D, F, A flat, and it's in the 6th inversion. So that's going to be F, F is going to be on the bottom, and then you're going to have other ones. But I'll go into more detail and actually draw out examples, okay, for each one of these so you can see how you're going to do everything. Next up, we have 4, 2, 5, okay? So it's just the 4 chord, and this one's minor, to the 5 chord major, okay? All right, and that one's not diminished. You're just going to have it in its regular inversion. Why we have to do the diminished is because of the voice leading, which I'll show you in the next part, okay? Now, next thing is, before we jump into this chorale style cadence writing, I want to kind of go over a couple ground rules here, okay? So these are good things to keep in your mind. So one thing you want to have is think smooth voice leading, okay? Smooth voice leading is the difference between going from one chord and another and it sounding awful and bad to going, oh, that sounds so nice. Okay? You can experiment on your own. You can try writing some horrible voice leading that, you can use the same chord tones and then put them in a way that's really bad, like spread out and weird and everything. And you can try playing it and you're going to go like, wow, that doesn't sound good. So anyway, these are sort of rules that people have developed that they like the rules that show you, oh, this is how this sounds good. Okay? That's basically what it's all about, is trying to make this sound as good as possible in like a scientific way, you could say, almost. So, first one is, contrary motion is very important. Okay, you're going to have 4 voices, remember? Soprano, alto, tenor, bass, right? From the other video. If you haven't watched that, you should go back, because you're probably going to get lost later on in the next part if you don't. So contrary motion is very critical, because what happens is, if all 4 of your voices are dun 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 and then they all go down like this, it sounds not very good. It sounds like the whole chord just fell off the shelf or something and hit the floor. Not very good. It doesn't actually sound very smooth or good at all. You can try experimenting and see how it sounds, and you'll see, yeah, it doesn't give you that nice effect. So if you have, with contrary motion, what it means is you could have, out of the 4 voices, you could have 3 of them, 1, 2, 3, and they could be going down, and then you could have another one in the bottom and it can be going up. So if you have some going down and 1 going up, or maybe 2 going up, 2 going down, or whatever, generally you're going to have 3 going one direction, 1 going the other. Or you might have 2 going down, 1 going up, and you might have 1 staying still. So that's your common tone, okay? So common tones are nice. Contrary motion here, you always want to have at least something going in another direction. In some cadences, you absolutely can't have it, it doesn't work out, so the best you can do is have a common tone. But you need to have at least one of these, okay? If you don't have contrary motion in your voice leading, and you don't have or a common tone, you need at least one. Okay, so at least get your voice leading to have a contrary motion or a common tone. Okay? Okay. I sounded all stressed out. I'm like, man, they're going to write their cadences without common tones or, contrary motion. And I'm just like, oh, I got to make sure that they know this. Okay. Yeah, because I want you guys to sound good when you write your music, and it will sound more professional and better if you can pull this off. Okay? Think of harmony. This is actually the very beginning of what we call harmony in the next stage of music theory. After you pass this level, this is actually what you do later on, is it's like, now you know all about music theory, and now it's just like, okay, here's a harmonic progression. Okay, now find smooth voice leading and write this out, and like compose this. Okay? So this lesson is actually quite, pivotal that you understand this one too, because I keep saying that every lesson. I'm like, oh, this one's really important, but it is. You need to have these 2 things, the contrary motion, the common tones, at least one of them, to have basically a cadence or a chord change that actually has any good, like sounds good at all. Okay. Now, lastly, it's important too that this one is probably not the most important, and it's very vague. Small intervals, okay? Now, if you have, these kind of 2 go together actually. Small intervals, what I mean by this is, if you have one voice, try to find another voice that's as close as possible to it. So if you have an F, and you have a G in the other chord that you're going to go to, try to put those two together, okay? So put them in the same voice, like a tenor voice, or soprano, or alto, or whatever. Put it in that same voice. You'll notice that there will be ones that move together closely, and it's like a puzzle basically. So it's sort of like fitting, okay, well that voice goes there, and this voice goes there, and that goes there. And you'll see very soon why it goes out that way. But anyway, okay, so small intervals. You want to look for the next, like another interval that's going to be small. You don't want to be like leaping like sixths or, like over 8, like an octave. With the next one here, it says less than perfect eighth between voices. Now, actually, that should probably more say you can have up to an eighth, okay? So from the soprano voice to the alto, and then from the alto to the tenor, each one of those has to be, the span or distance between them can only be at maximum an octave. So if you have a note on E in the soprano, then you have to be playing at the very minimum, like the maximum stretch possible is the E below it, an octave. If you go lower than that, then it doesn't sound very much like a chord anymore, and it starts sounding airy. So if you're going into a harmony exam or whatever, they'll dock you marks for this rule too. So now that's where it can get a little hectic is you can be having E and then D and then F and all that, right? All that stuff. So you have to be checking, okay, is my tenor voice, within an octave of the new changing soprano line, and is my tenor and the alto an octave, and all that other stuff. So you constantly have all these voices moving, and they have to be within certain parameters, and so it can get pretty nuts. Now, there's one exception to this rule. You can have less than a perfect octave, or more than a perfect octave, only in the bass, okay? Since the bass is a special note, it supports the whole structure, it can be up to a tenth apart. So it's allowable up to a tenth. So in other words, you could have a really, really low A, and you could have like a bass C. That would be good. That's a tenth apart, okay? Any more than that and it's too much. You'll get docked marks if you're doing a harmony exam in Canada at least. I don't know about the other countries in the world, but it's a pretty high standard world, recognized around the world for its music. Whatever. I can't think of the word. But anyway, so those rules are very good rules to go by. And so keep these in mind. So what I would do if I were you is for this, write a piece of paper and go imperfect cadence, these are your possibilities, and leave room. And then what I'd like you to do is write down my examples, because I'm going to draw examples for each one of these and show you how to do the voice leading for them. Alright guys, so this next part here is the imperfect cadence, but it's going to be 1 to 5 for the major side and the minor side. Now, I wanted to do these guys together so that I could show you how it differs in the voice leading. Even though you're using the same chord, it's actually going to change from major to minor. So also, in these, I could have actually used the same voice leading, but I wanted to, in this one right here, I actually purposely used a different one, and to show you the difference and the advantages of both. So that gives you guys a little bit more, knowledge of why you would do things a certain way, and what people are thinking when they're writing harmony out. Because eventually, if you want to keep going in music theory, that's what you're going to do down the road anyway. So, now, okay, so we have a 1 to 5, alright? Now, what we need to do is, first thing we need to do is, we're going to just be using C major and C minor because they're really easy. And first thing you got to do whenever you're writing one of these out is, first you got to figure out what your chord tones are going to be, okay? So we know 1 of C major, that's going to be C, E, G. And now we're going to double the root of the chord so that we have 4 voices. So we have C, C, E, G. Okay? Now, over here with the 5, we have the 5th note of C major is G, so it's G, G, B, D. Alright? Okay. Now, what we need to do next is figure out a logical way to arrange the voices. Now, this just turns out to be probably one of the best ways you could arrange them. It's very, very, very good. Okay? This way is not as good. as far as voice leading is concerned. It is acceptable though. Both of these are acceptable, but you know, in my own personal opinion, I think this one's better, and I'll tell you why. Okay, first up, I want you to take a look. Notice how I just did kind of a rough thing. I'm keeping it red for major and blue for minor, just so you guys can, I don't know, it doesn't get all black. I was just using the black microphone, and I'm like, man, I have all these colors, why aren't I using them? So, anyway. Okay, so we're going to look at this first. So, I have a C, a C, an E, and a G. Now, you always want to look right away, do I have a common tone? G, G, B, D. Oh look, I have a G here, and another G, and I have a C, and another G over here. Okay, so, first up, we want to see if we can get the common tones to match. So, we'll think about that. So keep that one in mind. Another one is we need to have the bass notes in the bass, because if this is just a 1, we have to put a C. Otherwise, if it was 1-6, we'd be putting an E in the bass, and if it was a 1-6-4, then it'd be a G in the bass. Okay? But it's not. It's just a 1, so it's a 1-5-3. So we're going to put C in the bass here. By the way, if this is getting really hard for you guys and confusing, don't worry too much about it. I'm not going to be putting this stuff on the exam. Okay? Because this is actually more stuff that you're going to be doing in harmony. So, you know, I won't get too intensely. If I do put it on the exam, I might actually, because it is part of it. But if I do, I won't make it so it counts for a lot of marks, because this isn't the only thing that matters in, you know, this level. So, you know, just go through it. You might need to review this video a couple times, and there's a huge learning curve when you first get into this stuff. When I first started, I was like, what? I don't get it. Explain it to me again. No, I still don't get it. Oh, this is so hard. No, I didn't cry, but I felt like I was not very smart. I was just like, oh, why can't I get this? It's so hard. But anyway, once you get this kind of curve here, harmony becomes a lot easier. Like the first level of harmony was the hardest for me, and then the second level was a lot easier, and it just doesn't really get that much, it's just a really high learning curve when you start, and then it kind of gets easier, but it gets more and more convoluted and complex as you keep going too. Anyway, I just want to cut that off and actually get back to the point here. Okay, so we've got C, C, so we have C and we have another C, so we're going to need to use both of them, and we have 2 Gs. We need to use each one of these for the bass, so that leaves us 1 C and 1 G. So we're going to use this G with this G and make it a common tone, and then you're going to look and you're going to see, okay, I have a C and the B are very close, and the E and the D are very close. Now, sure, the C and the D could be close, but then the E has to go with the B, and that's more of a jump. So if you go C, B, that's only a second, and E to D is a second. Okay, so watch this. Now, we have C in the bass. Now notice how the stem's going down, so this is the bass line, and then this stem is going down. Half notes are really good to use for chorale style, because you don't have to, you just draw a circle and the stem shows which voice is which. It's really a very convenient note to use for this kind of writing. That's why I'm using it. So we're going C to G. Okay, so that pretty much had to be that way. It's either going to be going up or it's going to be down. Okay, so it's either going to go C, G, or I'd have in this case, C to G going down. So it's either going up or down in one way or another, okay? Now, next up, we have C, which is an octave apart, so it's not too far apart. Remember, the bass can be up to 1/10 apart. This, from here to here, that's an octave, so it's well within the bounds of a bass line. So here to here, now, the C is going to the B right here, okay? So now we've got C going down to B, and C going up to G. Okay, so now we have the next one, we have the common tone in this line right here. So this is the alto, and the alto is just staying the same, so it's just G, G, okay? So there's our common tone. We actually have that one check mark off our list. Okay, we put a common tone in, good. Now, the E up top, this is the soprano line, okay? So it's the E going to the D. So it's falling down, and the C is falling to the B. Okay, so we have 2 notes going down, 1 staying the same, and 1 going up. So do we have contrary motion? Yes, we do. We have this going up while these 2 are going down, and we also have a common tone too. So And all of these, the only thing that's moving more than a second is the bass, and the bass actually does tend to jump around quite a bit. So that's totally acceptable. It's actually quite a nice sounding cadence, and it's very common, very great placement. So you'll notice there's creativity in music, but there's really only a few ways that you can do these without them sounding bad. There's, you know, several ways to do something, and one way is usually superior to the other. So you'll find that these, this is one of the best ways to do this this cadence. Okay, and it is pretty much the same idea. Like if you put this into A flat major, now you're just going to have an A flat going to an E flat, and you're going to have, you know, the same notes in relative. So you're still going to have the tonic going to the dominant, and you're still going to have the tonic going down to the leading tone, and you're going to have, you know, the dominant to the dominant as your leading tone, your common tone, and you're going to have the mediant going to the falling down to the supertonic. Okay, so that's why it's so important to memorize your scale degrees, is because if you can remember these patterns, then you can apply them to any other major scale cadence that you need to. You just go, okay, that's where those go, and then you just put them in, and boom, done. Cool, huh? Okay, so that's this. So I would suggest that you write this down, pause the video if you need to, and write it down. Just get it in your brain and go over this, analyze a lot of it. You know, your bass. So notice here, we have an octave apart. This is a third apart. That's, you know, all these are within an octave of each other. So the voice leading is great. So pretty much perfect. Now I won't spend as much time on the other ones because I was trying to introduce how this all looks, okay? But I'm going to tell you a little bit why I choose this one over that one. Okay, so now we've got C minor. So we go through the same thing again. So we get the chord tones, so C, C, E flat, G. I have to use E flat because it's in the key signature of C minor. Now you're kind of starting to see why we need to remember these key signatures, huh? And then the dominant, we have G, G, B, D. Okay, so now if you look from here to here, it's the same notes, okay? Now, I had the choice to either do this one exactly the same as this one, or show you one that was less ideal so that I could show you what the differences are. So just keep in mind, I probably wouldn't do it like this generally, because it's not as good as that one in my opinion, and I'll tell you why in a second here. But you know, you can throw these in for variety, because it's actually technically not breaking really any rules as far as I can see right now. So it is an acceptable cadence, it's just not as good as that one. So you could actually do this C minor cadence exactly like you did the C major one, except only difference is you'd have to write an E flat if you did that way. Okay? Alright, so why is this one over here, in my opinion, better than this one? Well, first I want you to look at these arrows. Whenever you're looking at cadences in the chorale style, you're going to be looking at how the voices are moving, okay? So you have to take careful note of this. You're probably not going to draw this on your sheet music, so I wanted to draw this for you to see what you should be looking at, okay? So take note of where the voices are moving, because it's important. Okay, so right here we have one common tone, G to G, okay? Here we have C falling to B, and yes, it's within range of it, so that's fine. Okay, we have E flat falling to D. That's fine too. Okay? Alright, now next we have C falling to G. Okay, so we have a common tone. We have at least a common tone. But do you notice a recurring theme? There's three falling voices. All of these voices are falling down. One is going over. So there's no contrary motion, and what it kind of has like a sighing feeling to it. It doesn't really sound as good as when you're playing that. If you got a piano at home or something like that, you could try playing these out for yourself and hear the difference and really like listen, be like, oh, okay, and listen to the voices moving. This one doesn't sound bad because it actually does meet the criteria, but in my opinion, this one's a stronger cadence because it has contrary motion plus a leading tone plus, you know, or no, nothing else. Whoops. Got a little, you know, plus happy. Okay, anyway, so those are those things there. Now, over here, we don't have contrary motion at all. So all we have that's holding it together really is the common tone. If we didn't have the common tone, then we would have nothing. All of it would be moving down, or all of it would be moving up. Okay? So in this case, all down. Now, that's basically why that one's better, I'd say. So how I actually changed it is I moved one of the C's up here, right? So see how there's two C's? Well, one of the one that was down here is now up here. And so now the E that was there is now moved down here, and the G is still in the same place. I could have written it lower. There's lots of different ways you can write these, but there's only, a few really good ways to do it. So it's really like a puzzle. So if you like puzzles, then you'll really like harmony. It's actually quite fun. So it's like a crossword puzzle. It really, really works your brain because you're trying to think, okay, well, how can I do this to make it work? So anyway, now, next up, what did I want to say lastly? Oh yeah, right here. Now, do you notice how this stem is going up? This is an E. It's an E flat, actually. Now, why didn't I write it up here on the treble clef? You can't answer me, of course, but I want you to ask yourself the question, why did I put it there? It's actually extremely important because if I wrote it here, it would be wrong. Because if I wrote it in the treble clef, then I have 3 voices in the treble clef and only 1 in the bass clef. Okay? So the stem going down, this is the bass line. Stem going up, right? That's the tenor. So we've got tenor falling to the other tenor, and they're sharing the bass clef. Okay? So this has to be on the ledger line. So that's C and that's E. Those ledger lines going down. That's why it's written there. So again, write this out. Take careful note. Look at where all the, where's the tonic and the dominant and the supertonic and all that stuff. Where are they? And then, you can try writing these examples in other keys. That's a hint of what the homework's going to be about. Okay, anyway. So, I think I pretty much explained these examples. Now I'm not going to probably have to explain as much in the next ones because I've sort of given you the thought process of how we do this. Alright, so let's get on to the next one. Okay, so our next one here is the imperfect cadence with the 2 to 5. Alright, so let's look at the major first. So slide on over. Alright, so now C major, we have the 2 chord, which is minor, to the 5 chord, which is major. So it's D, F, A, and then we have the D doubled. The root is doubled. Usually you're going to want to, a general rule is you're usually going to double the root of the chord, whatever you're going to put. It doesn't always happen. There's so many exceptions to harmony that we'll just save it for later, I guess, if I ever get into teaching harmony courses. This can get pretty crazy. So anyway, but yeah, you'll see that over here. Okay, anyway, so first up, always write this thing out. It is so helpful on the bottom. You will not regret it. It takes a little bit of time, but it saves you so much more time because you can just glance down, and eventually what happens is you start to see these things in your head almost. As you start to see them and imagine them, you can visualize them, and then you can do mentally, and then eventually you get really, really fast at doing it. So write these out all the time. They're so helpful. Write the chord underneath that you're going to be writing, and then write the chord tones that you're going to be using. And then what you can do is look for common tones, and you can look for what your bass note is, and all that stuff. So generally the first thing you want to do is you want to plan where you're going to put your bass. So in this case it's going down, okay? I kind of had to move the stem over to get out of the way of that. And yeah, I wasn't really thinking when I wrote that there. Anyway. Okay, so it's moving down. Then we've got this moving up, that going to the side, and that going up again. So again, good voice leading. And, it's just your straight up 2 chord to 5 chord. So it has G, G, B, D in it. And you've got the other one as well. So your common tone is the D, and then, yeah, just like that. So write that one out. I did a lot less talking on this because you should get the idea by now, I think. At least I don't want to give too much, just talk forever. Okay, so also my voice is a little bit sore too. Okay, anyway, so that's that one. I think that's pretty good. Like, just always think, always be checking your distances between, your voices. Do I have a common tone? Do I have contrary motion or not? Now, you're not always going to be able to get contrary motion. That, it's not like we live in a perfect world and we always get what we want, but you have to have at least contrary motion or at least a common tone, okay? So, if you can get both, that's pretty good. But anyway, so let's move along to the next one. Alright, so the minor version here, it's 2 diminished 6 to 5. Now, like I said before, this is a diminished chord because we have the A flat in there now. So it's D to F is a minor third, and F to A flat is a minor third as well. So that makes a diminished triad. Okay, now, which is our bottom or our root though? Because we have a 6, now, mind you, we have to do a 6 because otherwise the voice leading doesn't work. So it tends to work like this. So this is the common way to do the 2 to 5, is you do the 2 diminished 6 to the 5. And it actually voice leads quite nicely, especially, now, this might blow your mind, maybe not, who knows. But later on what you do is it's just like bam, 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 chords just everywhere, just one chord to the next. So how you do this one now directly goes to the next one. So you can't change something in here because now it affects here and here. Whoa, hey? So if you get the voice leading really good here, but then you try to do this chord and you're like, oh crap, I didn't do it the right way in this so that it matches this, then you have to alter this, and then you might have to alter this to accommodate that, and then you'd have to go back and, just it's like a cascade of dominoes. Just you're like, no, all my work is gone. So anyway, over time you start to memorize how the chord patterns are supposed to, kind of voice lead, and then you get faster and faster. But a lot of people fail harmony because it gets intense. Now, luckily in this level you don't even have to do more than just these. Like, this is it. But later down the road you have to do all these things just in a sequence of events that can get pretty intense. Anyway, okay, so moving along here, I've probably scared you for life about harmony. Either that or it really intrigued your interest. Okay, so we have, now in this case we don't actually have contrary motion. We have this voice, the bass going up, we have the common tone in the tenor voice, we have the alto going up and the soprano going up. Now, I wrote in the key signature because that's actually what you would want to do. I didn't do it in the last one, and I was thinking after, I'm like, ooh, that wasn't a very good example. So I should, you should be putting in the key signature, and I guess you should put in the brace too. But I guess I'm just getting sloppy. Anyway, so just take careful note, you're going up here. Now, which one is doubled? It's not the bass, or is it the bass? The bass in this case is actually going to be the F, because the 6 tells you, it's the third of the chord. So you have D, F, F, A flat. Okay, so immediately you're going to put an F in the bass clef, and you're going to have a G in the bass clef, or the bass voice line. Okay, so now the next one, we've taken care of those two, so we can cross G off and F off, but we still have another G and F, so we could put those up there. We have a common tone, D and D, so we could put them here. And then we have F and G, and we can put those, and then I already said that one, but anyway. Then we have A flat going to B. Now, notice how this is B natural. Why is it B natural? Because it's the harmonic, okay? So the B natural has to be in there. And actually, I'm thinking, I don't think I did it in the last one that I just did. So, I was in such a hurry when I wrote that out that I don't think I put the B natural in there. It's so easy to make little mistakes. If you're not thinking carefully, you can just make a tiny little mistake here and there. You have to be very meticulous and detail oriented, so I guess I made a mistake. Anyway, at least I owned up to it and didn't try to hide it. Okay, so yeah, you're going to want to put the B natural there. I bet you if I'd written a key signature and then I wouldn't have forgotten to write the natural in. And I thought, oh, I'll just, leave the key signature out because it's just an example. But I should have written it in because it's going to remind you that there's actually, these flats in effect. So this A flat is affecting this A, so it's actually an A flat to a B natural because we raised the 7th note of a minor scale, right, in the harmonic. So we're writing harmony right now. That's where the harmonic part of the harmony comes from. That's why it's called a harmonic scale, because it impacts the harmony. So we write that to a B natural, and so why this is actually so good is because it has a rising feeling, and then you could have one chord coming up after here, and you could have C on the top if you want it, because you could do 2 diminished 6 to a 5, and then you could do a 1. This is actually a pretty common pattern if you're trying to end. Now this is an imperfect cadence, of course, but if you added a 1, then you could consider the 2 to the 5 an imperfect, and then the 5 to the 1 could be a perfect. So it'd be pretty cool. So you could have the C at the top, and that would give you a nice ending, because it's good to have the tonic at the top and the bottom. So it would work out really nice that way. But anyway, so that's basically this one. So write these two down, and yeah, then we're going to move along to the next one. Okay, and we've got our last example, or set of examples here. And this is the 4 to 5 for the major and the 4 to 5 for the minor. Okay, so first up, I want to stress another kind of rule. If you had to pick between the two rules, if you can have a common tone or contrary motion, which one's more powerful? Well, it's the contrary motion, by far. Contrary motion is more potent than the common tone. As far as, at least when I was taught it, that's the way it was. So, maybe I was taught wrong, but probably not. Anyway, at least I like to think so. But yeah, so now I know there's so many different ways you could write this that you can't really just say that this is the only way to write it. There are other ways too, and there's other variations and differences. Like this way can be written out this way, the same way, just using, but I decided to change it up and give you a different way that you can do this. And there's still more ways you can do it. So anyway, the interesting thing about harmony though is there is sort of like a best, most logical way to do something. And like when me and my teacher, my old theory teacher, we'd both take a line and then we'd kind of race and like do the same one, and we'd like see how fast we could get to the end. And then at the end, like it would say what chords you're supposed to put, and you can place the voices however you want to, right? And so, you're writing out at least, 50 to 100 notes and all these voices and all these rules and everything. And then when you flip it over and you compare, it's like 99% the same thing. And you're like, wow, there's so many ways that you could change it, but it just doesn't make sense. It's more easier to do it that way. So, there's all these rules that it just kind of, puts it into this one way, and that's the best way to do it. So it's quite interesting. But anyway, later on, then you take that knowledge and then you start writing different stuff too. Like there's different styles of music down the road as well that you write in. Okay, so that was another ramble. Okay, so here we have 3 notes falling and 1 note contrary motion rising, and that is totally acceptable because they're all nice close together, and we've got one voice moving up, the other 3 moving down. Notes in common aren't always going to be there. If you look here, do you see any common tones? No, there are none. A and B, C, D, nothing is in common. So you can't actually always have a common tone. But if you don't have a common tone, you have to make sure that there's contrary motion going on. Okay? So that's this, so write that down. Okay, now moving along over here, we've got the minor 4, right? So we have A flat in there. And okay, so it's got F, and just for kicks I wrote F an octave higher, going down to D. So F is going up to G, and so all these 3 are going down again, but we've moved the voices around. So the C that was over here is now an octave higher. This F is actually, in the same place, but it's now in the tenor voice instead of the alto. And now the A is going down to the G, where, that was happening before in the soprano. So, things have sort of switched places. But overall, it's the same thing happening. We have one voice going up, moving in contrary motion to the top voices. So we have F, F, A, B, A flat B, and we have G, G, B, D. And again, do you see any common tones? Nope, there are none. So we don't have a common tone. So this is really, you know, the best that you can do in that situation. I mean, not the best, but there, you know, you can't get a common tone when you don't have one. So, you know, you can't do really any better than, you can't just make a common tone just appear out of thin air, like a leprechaun or something. He's just like, hey, I'm your common tone, how are you doing? Anyway, I don't do a very good Scottish accent. Even though I am kind of part Scottish. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so, or I guess it was Irish, isn't it? I'm also part Irish and English. And Polish and other stuff all mixed together. But anyway. So yeah, those are two last examples, and obviously I'm not talking about them as in depth because I've explained so much already. You guys are getting probably sick of me. Anyway, so I hope that was helpful, and let's move along to the homework. Homework. No. Okay guys, so for your homework today, what I want you to do is write each of the examples that we did, so all 6 of them, in 3 different keys. So, might seem like a lot of homework, but you know, you're only doing 3 keys for each one, and so it's probably maybe not even enough. You might want to even do 5 or even 10 if you know, you really don't feel like you're getting it. And try doing them different ways and experiment, and you'll see how, you know, if you step out of those bounds, it's pretty hard to stay to those rules. So anyway, so always, you know, look for your contrary motion, and always look at, you know, common tones and smooth voice leading and all the stuff we were talking about. And remember those patterns. So memorize the different ways that you can write an imperfect cadence, and also do this homework. So write out at least 3, maybe more, maybe 5, until you feel like you really get it. I know this is a tough lesson, but it's worth it in the end. So write out each example in 3 keys, okay? So if you like do 1 in minor, 3 different ways, you could pick, like, you know, like maybe A minor, B minor, and G minor or something, and then write out, you know, those 3 in that key for, say, 1 to 5, and then for the next, like, 2 to 6 to 5, you could use the same keys if you want to, and then you can see how it changes, or you could pick different keys if you're feeling adventurous. Anyway, so I'd like you to do that, and then check it with the voice leading that I used, and make sure that it follows all the rules that I was talking about in the video, and that should be good. Okay, that was a pretty big lesson. So hopefully you guys didn't get too overwhelmed from that, and again, if it gets confusing, you can just rewatch it again, and if it's really, really, really confusing, you can always send me a message, you know, through my website or through YouTube or whatever you want to do. Anyway, so I really hope that you guys are doing really well, and that you guys didn't cry when you watched this lesson. Anyway, okay, so I'll talk to you guys later, and I'll see you in the next, I guess I won't talk to you later, but I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye!